Hello, writers. I'm Solly with Pendraic, and today I thought I'd talk a little bit about how I turn an idea, a vague idea or a solid idea, into a real premise. Now, most books start off as a mood, a what if, or an image that just won't leave you alone. Days, weeks, months, years for some authors, decades, and this little idea haunts you. It follows you around. It's always on your mind. How do I turn this into a piece of work, into a book, a novel, a short story? And those are fine places to start. Every book starts there, but you've got to have more than that to build and create and scaffold. You need a premise. So this is about how to sharpen that thought, how to ignite that ember into a roaring flame of a story. For this exercise, I'll be using Pendraic Desktop and the new Writer's Unblock feature. And we're just going to start on a blank page. Nothing too intimidating, right? Yeah, okay. So an idea I had goes something like this. Solar flares wipe out everyone's memory permanently, but somehow identical twins are immune. Government rounding them up before everything falls apart. Okay, so we don't want to be too creative. We just want to get that idea out. It's a basic idea. Get it done in plain words. Solar flares wipe out everyone's memory permanently. That's enough to begin. We've got a little twist here. Identical twins are immune. And we've got some conflict here. The government is rounding them up before everything falls apart. If you get that much, great. If you don't, great. This is just starting out, getting your thought written down. So the messier you are, the better usually with this, because it's the right starting point. We're just going to refine from here. We're going to sharpen it. And we're not going to invent anything from scratch after this. We've already invented it. We want to put it down, something we can poke at, something we can rip into. In Pendraic, you can talk through this with Penny if you want. You can work on it on your own without distractions. You can pull up and you can see, do you have enough information in here identified yet that you might have enough to spark your story with? Not yet. Obviously, we just have a couple sentences, but we're getting there. So now what I like to do is interrogate this. I will start asking some questions. I'll ask, who's the protagonist? What do they want? What's standing in their way? What happens if they fail? And failure has to be an option. More often than not, it has to be an option. Otherwise, you don't have a good, compelling story. If everybody gets whatever they want, then why bother reading it? You know what's going to happen. Just look at the front cover and use your imagination and move on to the next one. So I have two. I am an identical twin, just so you know. And for the sake of this, I haven't thought any of this out. I'm just going to use my name and my brother's name. So I'm just going to say it is Brian and Derek, twin brothers, long in my job. Never asked much of him. Derek, Air Force intelligence, kind of cliche. All discipline and duty. All right. So what do they want? Let's say government's rounding up twins. We don't quite know yet what's happening to non-twins. But let's say Derek's wife and their parents through the door before it closes. We're going to assume that government's rounding them up. They're taking them somewhere. Cheyenne Missile Complex sounds great. Let's say there. Big blast gates. Get them there before the door closes. What's standing in their way? Military is only gathering twins and ignoring non-essential parents. And Derek's wife aren't immune. Okay. What happens if they fail? Twins get in either way, but they lose everyone else, remain outside, and twins spent years inside dealing with that result. Okay, that's good enough. Generally, what I like to do after this is I'll start drafting my log lines, which is just a sentence explanation of the story. It's a description in a sentence. It is just a blurb. I'll do generally one that's based on the plot. I'll do one that's based on character driven, and I'll do one that's based on the thematic elements here. So for plot, for the one sentence log line on this, I would say when a solar storm races the world's memory overnight, identical twins turn out to be the only ones immune, and two brothers must get their family inside a mountain bunker before the government seals it or good. All right, it's a long sentence, kind of meaty, but it captures it all. Character driven, we'll just say twin brothers, Ryan and Derek, have days to get their family past a government checkpoint only saves identical twins for a memory erasing solar event, finishes tearing the world apart. And for any world where losing your mind is contagious, someone's twin is the only immunity available. Two brothers have to decide who they can carry in a world where losing your mind is contagious. Sounds interesting. All right, so there's some elements of each of these that I think we can rob and make actually a pretty good logline out of. A series of solar storms begins, erasing memory. Identical twins turn out to be the only ones immune, and brothers Brian and Derek have to get their family mountain bunker before the government seals. That was pretty funny because my Apple HomePod decided to start chatting with me about magnetic effects of solar flares and solar storms. So interesting. So we've ended up with this long sentence. When a series of solar storms begins erasing the world's memory, identical twins turn out to be the only ones immune, and brothers Brian and Derek have to get their family inside a mountain bunker before the government seals it for good. It needs some work, but I'm good with that. I'm all right with that. So I think I'm going to take that log line. I'm just going to say that's good now. I started out with my basic premise. I generated who my protagonist or protagonists are. What do they want? What's standing in their way? What happens if they fail? I set up 3 draft log lines, one plot focused, one character driven, and one thematic. Took out the elements of the 3 of them and rewrote them and got a draft log line that I am okay with. I'm all right with it. Now what we'd like to do is we'd like to expand our log line into a synopsis, which is really just a summary of the story's theme, plot, what happens in the story. Generally, it's a page or 2. Okay, so Brian and Derek are identical twins from rural Idaho who grew up stargazing together. Derek graduated high school and joined the Air Force, going directly into Air Force intelligence. And Brian got into sales and he installed out a corporate job that sucked out his soul. Then a series of solar flares starts hitting the Earth. Weak and frequent at first, then stronger and further apart, each one wiping memory deeper than the last. The same interference frying the power grids is scrambling the brain's own electrical signal, and it doesn't come back. Every creature with a brain is losing itself permanently, with no warning before an event and no signal during one, only the aftermath. Okay, we can go further than this, but I think that this is actually fine. This is a little short for a synopsis. This is more like an elevator pitch. You know, you've heard of that. You get stuck on an elevator with someone, they want to know what you do. You got enough time for the elevator to stop to get it out. So that's more what this is than a synopsis. This isn't a page. This is just basically a paragraph, but it'll work. This is plenty for now, plenty of meat. What we can do now is we can take our log line and we can take our synopsis and we can feed these into either a new project in the bookshelf. So we can come in here and we can put the log line and the synopsis. We could paste them in here. We can fill out the rest of the information if we'd like to for the metadata for the book. We don't have to. We can also just randomize it and let AI take whatever we do fill out and they'll fill in the rest of the blanks accordingly, or fill it out yourself if you have everything already thought up and you're ready to go. Something else we can do is in Writer's Unblock, we can sift through and we can take a peek, see, is there enough to build on? Well, initially it says there is enough to build on. I see there's a couple of casts already identified in here. There's some places and factions, who is who. We've got Earth in here and we've got a rule that's been stated. So we will see what happens here. Okay, and Penny has tidied it up. We've got the log line, we've got the twins, the solar flares identified on here. We've got some book details that are identified over here. We do have some things that Penny thinks is missing. Why identical twins specifically are immune. Well, we're going to discover that throughout the book. The other family members Brian and Derek need to save are not named or described. We'll get to that in the book as well. That's all right. How the brothers plan to physically reach and travel to the bunker together is not described. It's not necessarily they're going to travel. They're more going to be taken there by the military, I think, but we'll figure that out a little further down the road, some of this stuff when we start outlining, when we start coming through our plot and progression. We're going to say, just going to keep everything. Keep it all. And we've got a story framed. Alternately, if you'd like, you can engage Penny to make it real into a book, a world, or both. And we will include the stuff the Sift has found in there, and Penny can fill out the rest of the work for us. But that's it right there. A log line and a synopsis sitting together here on a project. It started with just a thought, a sentence, something that was in my mind, and now we've turned it into a foundation we can start building off of. It still needs a lot of work, but it's just one step. And that's all writing is. It's just a step and then another step and another step. And we go from there. And so what we've created here is the premise. The premise is really a combination of your logline and your synopsis. So now we do have enough stuff to work on. And the next step would be outlining or working on a theme mapping, or if we want to develop some characters. There's a number of places that we can take this. Generally, after I have the premise figured out, I like to figure out my format. How do I want to structure it? And then how do I start outlining it? I'm an outliner. Sometimes I like to pants, but more often than not, I write by outline. So if you spend 10 minutes and you lock in a good premise, it's going to be well worth the time spent. A clear premise makes the outlining easier, the drafting easier, the editing easier, because you already know, and you always know, what your book is. If you don't have it all cleared out and you don't know what your book wants to be, it's going to make everything harder. It's going to make outlining, drafting, and editing much harder. And so this little exercise is some of the highest value bang for your buck that you're going to spend on your entire book. I guarantee it. So I hope you learned something from here. Tune in next time. Maybe we'll talk about outlining, and join the Pendraic Discord if you want some real-time conversation, some assistance tips, guidance, banter with other writers. You name it, we're there. Happy writing, and I will see you next time.